Hello and welcome everyone to another Finance Magnates webinar. Today's topic is liquidity as a business. Joining us today is John Murillo. John is the Chief Business Officer of the B2 Broker Group, providing much needed guidance and insights thanks to his 20 plus years of experience in the industry. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to everyone, evening or morning, depending on your geographical area. I am John Murillo, Chief Business Officer at B2B Group of Companies. As you probably know by now, we're one of those brands well recognized in the industry, known for liquidity services and tech. Therefore, we've been in the industry for over 10 years today, and essentially, we've been focusing our company on three main verticals, primarily on the tech side. Essentially, the fastest growth of our business, of our group of companies, is on CFD liquidity provision, among other businesses that we currently run. So over time, we realized the importance of the liquidity business for ourselves. And I think, like with any business, as you start evolving into greater territories, you start to realize how complex some of these operations can be. The liquidity business per se is probably one of the toughest ones to be in, yet guys like us have managed to put together an offering, a solution due to our experience that is today basically a ready-made turnkey solution. It's a way to monetize the business that we are in. It's a way to diversify existing operations. And most importantly, and what everyone is looking for is new areas of income generation. At the end of the day, capital markets offer this very opportunity to all of us. However, if you're going to get into the space, you need to be very clear what to do, how to do that, who to partner with, and what is the business you're trying to get into. Today, I would like to elaborate on how you can get into the space, what is our expertise, what is part of our journey, who we really are for a partner, and how we can assist you to achieve the ultimate goal. We believe in this particular segment of the industry, there are key points to take into consideration. Number one, who are you doing business with? For example, our company's been around, as I said earlier, over 10 years. We have a wealth of experience in different fields with different tech vendors. From a liquidity standpoint, myself in particular, dealing with multiple institutions globally. We realize that the model of a prime of prime is today the way forward in this business because you're looking at capital efficiency. And I will elaborate in a second what I mean by this. You also need to take into consideration the netting benefits of our offering of a prime of prime solution. Something extremely important nowadays. And of course, broker dealers these days have become very, very sophisticated. Therefore, they have a great deal of understanding of how the business runs. Or financial institutions per se may be wanting to get into the space, but they're not really sure what are the key points that you got to be actually looking into. I focus tremendously as the years pass on stability, on integrity, and counterparty risk. And it starts from the likes of ourselves. Us who will be offering a service as a turnkey solution need to ensure that we're doing business with the correct banks, with the correct counterparties, that we do our due diligence on our own relationships. It is very important to do business with partners that have that expertise already, that have the know-how, as I call it, to be able to run a business together. Let me get these slides going so we can start covering some of these points and we get started. Give me 1 second. And here we go. So, as you can see, We have seen over time, over year after year, many retail brokers entering the space and trying to become liquidity providers. Some have been very successful, but the ultimate goal is obviously, as I said earlier, is to boost that revenue, that market share in the space we're all operating under. Many financial institutions out there are looking at ways to enter what we actually do and how what is truly amazing, and I've seen this in recent time, is how some new participants are coming to the space and they have actual very little expertise, but they have the financial means to build the business from scratch, grow that operation with us due to the fact that we are giving them that institutional know-how. Now, obviously, as you may say, well, how is this achieved? Number one, when you become a prime of prime, when businesses like ourselves have these relationships, you're essentially having the opportunity to monetize a business, an industry, due to the fact that we're giving you that aggregation, that interbank rate that is ultimately going to make you a competitive player in the space. So you get an opportunity to enter a world with us that we basically will take care of from A to Z. The business model, most companies out there, when they're thinking how to become a liquidity provider, the first thing that comes to their mind is how are we going to achieve this? What does it require from a tech perspective? What does it mean regulation? How do I get customers onboarded? What would be the workflow? We have ways to show you to mitigate all these concerns in ways that we have done so already. Therefore, it's a proven turnkey solution. It's not just a new business idea that we came out of nowhere. It's something we've been practicing with our operation for years and years. Now, our business has grown exponentially. Therefore, we feel we're in a position to facilitate a service that it actually works with all the pillars that come with it. Now, it is extremely important when we're looking at starting a business of this type that you basically are going to be a liquidity provider out there like ourselves. We are your prime of prime. We are that solution. We closed that gap between a PB and a prime of prime, which is sometimes very time consuming to acquire. And most importantly, it requires a great deal of expertise that is not easy to put a team together to give you that. What I've seen over time is there's a lot of people in this line of business, but there's very few highly qualified members of this industry, which will add value to your organization. You need people to run a liquidity business with a very, very focused expertise in certain areas, especially in the tech side. Because imagine every single day I deploy one or two clients. Okay, that's great. You may say, well, how do you do this? There is a whole mechanism, there's a whole procedure that goes behind the scenes to get these customers deployed, to get them to market. And if you're going to start doing something this complex, you need to be sure that that partner has the capability to support you. And that's something we have been building year after year. We're a customer-centric business, which we can share that level of expertise, how to achieve it. We are focused on execution, quality, and market depth. So when we construct an order book, we focus tremendously on the type of business that you're sending to us and effectively how this is being sent out to the street, essentially to banks and non-banks who are aggregated into our liquidity pools. We work with partners very closely to understand their needs. This is why we have built a multi-asset solution. It's a one-stop shop where we facilitate up to 8 asset classes through an API. It makes your life quite simple because we learn from the early stages the complexity of managing relationships for FX, let's say you have a PB and you only have the clearing there through of your precious metals and foreign exchange. But if you're doing equity indices, if you're doing ETFs, if you're doing single stocks, etc., crypto CFD, you need different relationships. And this is when things become very complex because you got to take into consideration there has to be a treasury team to back you up. There has to be a lot of homework done within your team, within your organization. You have to think also about the jurisdiction under which you operate to be able to offer that service to the end user. So, there's a lot of components that we can go on and on and on forever. We share our knowledge, our expertise on the routing of your flow, how you can monetize that business, how you can run different business models within. A lot of businesses today are focused on an STP basis, but there are other techniques that customers have developed over the years, and we can assist partners on achieving the ultimate goal because that's ultimately the final point here that I'd like to emphasize on. It comes down to all of this. It's about revenue. It's about optimization. It's about we sit with everyone on a so-called consultancy basis, and we tell you we like to review setups sometimes with partners who wish to do so, and we give you a tremendous level of expertise and advice. Obviously, we don't interfere with your business, but our philosophy is and has always been you choose your final decision, whatever that is. It is highly respected from our side, but we can point out key points that can improve that bottom line to your business. So we think that as of today, liquidity as a service is ultimately our new business model, one of our new solutions in the market for 2025. And ultimately, traditionally, a lot of guys out there, they see liquidity as an operational cost. Okay. And it could be perceived as such, but at the same time, it has a lot to do with the way you look at the business and how you are structured. For example, we see a lot of times some broker dealers having multiple LPs and they can construct that price, which is perfectly fine, right? There's still aggregation from different venues. They just plug it in into their own bridge or liquidity hub and they create their own price, which is perfectly understandable. But the science comes down to if you derive a price from different venues in a world of, let's say, the OTC market, it's not a centralized price. It is derived still from different sources, and every source has its own mechanisms on how to price. So we have seen time after time why brokers think liquidity becomes an operational expense because they might be sending long positions on, let's take the most traded product for 2025, gold. Everyone is long on gold, for example, but then you have customers who may well be short in the market, and you're sending a trade long to one LP, you're sending a short position to another LP without sometimes, realizing that you're paying a margin on both counterparties, you're paying a commission to both, and you don't know when that position will unwind. So what it means is at times you may say, well, I can make money on the short position because the gold trade at the moment is paying the shorts, but then the long outweighs that difference. So you have always that discrepancy and potential financial losses due to the simplicity of aggregating different LPs without having a prime of prime solution. It's something I emphasize tremendously. It's one of the things I have seen in some jurisdictions around the world where our partners, broker dealers, tend to do this, and then it becomes an unsustainable business because of the financial losses that arise from it. You may be well hedged. You may have short positions in one LP and long in the other for the same amount, and you might be hedged, but what you may not realize is that spread at the time of execution may cost you way more than you anticipate. So you see, it is difficult to scale a business in such conditions, which is why, strategically speaking, we believe liquidity as a service from our excuse me, liquidity as a service from our end becomes a very appealing solution to market participants because A, we already have the aggregation through our prime brokers. We already do aggregation. So we benefit from the netting of that, of all the trading flow that we get. And therefore, we can be very accommodating towards your business needs, whether we are considering something as simple as margins, whether we're looking at a dollar per million cost, it's all strategically aligned so we can make the business worthwhile for both parties. A lot of customers these days that are seeking a liquidity as a service is because they're ready to go to market. They have an audience, they have the client base, all they got to do is focus on marketing and sales. And we cover all the technicalities behind the scenes. So again, that's kind of vague, to some degree. For those of us who obviously will be interested in a little discussion, we are here to assist you, and our sales team will be able to elaborate further on what I mean by this. But again, when we look at also utilizing liquidity as a service from out, if you consider us, for example, we are very focused on what I like to call failover systems, backups, etc., whichever term you're accustomed to. Why? We run the business since early days with a real-time backup. Why? When I build the business, when I build an idea, I think of the worst case scenario and then I build everything on top of that. We like to consider the worst thing will happen. And then if it does occur, and I know it may sound a bit of an extremist um, personality per se, but in reality, all we're trying to prevent is unknown outcomes and how to manage that. We run a failover in real time in addition to a backup of the failover in real time. And we do this in different parts of the world. For example, most of our infrastructure is out of London, but we have a backup in New York and then again in Tokyo. So obviously, if something happens in the European Union, we may still have a price out of New York if everything, works as it should. So again, the offering this as a service becomes a new opportunity to generate higher revenues you may not have experienced, or is a way to get into the space with a ready-made solution. We already have gone through all the headaches. We've already learned our lessons, some which are very time consuming. We know more or less how long it takes to get a PB. The onboarding is extensive, it's extremely difficult. We already have those relationships. We already know what it takes. And what we do is we work with you as a partner to ensure you understand the needs and the opportunities that are behind the scenes. Now, because I think is the hottest topic in town, and no matter who we speak, in which part of the world, all customers have one particular need: spread optimization. This is a business about having a competitive price, which we fully understand, but it's also about being able to execute big orders once you gain traction, because you can have a very nice visual and you may have a top of the book that is super appealing. But when you get 100 to 1,000 customers trading more or less around the same time, you need to know that your liquidity partner is capable to consume that liquidity correctly, that you are capable to rely on that particular partner, that liquidity consumption is not going to have a negative impact on your business. Rather, you can build custom relationships to some degree. We build what I like to say bespoke liquidity solutions, all in accordance to clients' needs and clients' trading behavior. I think that also the execution that is going to come out of that has a real impact on that client relationship retention concept that is out there. Because I know a lot of businesses can do great marketing. As a matter of fact, I know many companies who have done an exceptional job worldwide. But to have that sales team, convey the right message to the customer. You got to make sure there's no rejections, that slippage management capability, tracking, analytics is there for you, that there's no latency, that there's an actual smart order routing in place. And we, as a business, we've been focusing for years on achieving this exact same target. So we believe since we managed to do this, now is an opportunity to share that expertise with all of you. Most importantly, and I always emphasize on risk management. Risk management for some businesses is extremely important, especially once your book of business starts growing. Yes, it leads to a higher net income. Bottom line is we all want to make higher revenues, and that's why you get into this industry. But we like to always tell partners there is there is a mature approach on how to manage that. We don't do risk management on your behalf, but we got all the tools. We have all the expertise. We understand the business from a completely different perspective. And what we try to do is always encourage, reducing some of that risk through, means of, let's say, hedging part of your book. If that's the model you're running, we give you actual analytic tools that there's a lot of data that you can utilize for these particular purposes. And for those who are in the risk management space, well, essentially it's all about controlling that Sharpe ratio. I'm sure you know what I mean. So it's extremely important that you work with a partner whose vision is aligned with your interests. And I feel we're that partner for many who have been working with us for years. They have shared that vision with us, and it becomes a very valuable opportunity to partner up and do something together. I think for those who don't know our business, for those of you who already know us, we have a reputation for being a tech vendor as well. We are in the tech space from day one, essentially. And we have learned so much over the years, some painful lessons as well, that a stable infrastructure is key. It actually sometimes, I'll share a little experience we've had, is that many years ago, we will have different hosting providers in different parts of the world for different services. And once we move into AWS, it was a much higher cost of doing business, no doubt. But the experiences that our customers have had ever since are priceless. The stable infrastructure, the stability of your system, the stability of having the right tech vendors in place for the business that you're trying to run. Maybe some broker dealers, for example, or there's some very sophisticated businesses that require the 1-0 likes. There are some other businesses that are interested in a bridge, the likes of, example, FX Cubic, just to name a few. We service multiple different solutions. So we're very agnostic to clients' needs regardless. But I'm just mentioning these two as a couple of examples. And what I've seen time after time, once customers have the right stable infrastructure in place, that stability transforms into credibility. It's something we have seen year after year. We notice how businesses can benefit from those strategic decisions that we have had to make as a business over the course of the years. Excuse me. And that's just naturally what happens when you understand the business you're in, when you have that expertise, when you have a team. Obviously, it's not a one-man show. We're over 500 employees at the firm today. But imagine the amount of engineers that are running this operation behind the scenes. That is what gives us comfort, to be able to cater to anyone, regardless of the size of the business. The scalability that we have today, it is probably one of the most incredible stories of our business. We can deal with, new businesses, establish operations, and very significant players as well. We service different types of businesses because it's the nature of our ecosystem. We have tech, we have liquidity provision, we have different projects that we run simultaneously, digital assets among them. So it is an ecosystem that keeps on growing with solutions to participants within our industry. I always tell everyone, how are you going to get into this space? Well, of course, you need the liquidity provider who can back you up, who has that know-how. I get it. This is step number one. But there's something extremely valuable here is how well positioned is that business? What I mean by that is it's not where your office is located or what they do, what they don't. It's about regulation. When you're dealing with a prime of prime that is regulated in multiple jurisdictions, it tells you the commitment that business has towards its client base. We have DFSA, SISEC, Mauritius, Bahamas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This knowledge we've gained from multiple jurisdictions is priceless. For all of you who are here today and for all of you who will listen to me in the future, this is a very key component to successfully run the liquidity business. You have to be able to offer different solutions to different customers in different parts of the world. That shows you the level of investment that the business has done. That shows you the integrity of that operation. We are a company that today we can proudly say we are regulated in 6, and there's other licenses as well that we have that are not listed here for different businesses, but it is priceless, the wealth of information and knowledge we gain over the course of the years in order to be regulated in different jurisdictions. If you're going to start this business, we can put you in contact with one of our agents in any jurisdiction in the world. We even have a file that we have put together because we had to do a lot of research. And to do research means a ton of time is dedicated. And then we gather all this information. And one day, someone had a brilliant idea to say to us, why don't we just put this in an Excel file? We already done it for ourselves. And now we share that knowledge with our partners so you can choose which jurisdiction works best for you. To us, it doesn't really matter where you're regulated. We can face you from any of our entities according to your company structure. But my point here is you see, you need to know the tech. You need to know how that prime of prime operates. You need to know their business model. You need to know where and how they're regulated. We offer all those needs in a turnkey solution for you. This is what made us successful, is the deep knowledge into the space to be able to construct solutions that work for your businesses. We can support any infrastructure. As I said before, for connectivity, the tech side, we are so agnostic that we can connect to anyone. We more or less we connected to everybody, but let's just hypothetically say in the margin business, we are connected to everyone. In the agency PB Give Up, we are connected. Obviously, it's a slightly different line of business, but we have our own solutions in place. And that's something for a later on discussion down the road. But you see, when you're trying to build a liquidity business, you got to look at things holistically. You have to think of what do I need to do and who can support me. Imagine coming to a business like ours where you can get all the pieces at once. So it becomes a centralized point of communication and it makes things a lot more interesting. And I like to say, this is how you truly align yourself between a partner and a provider, in this instance, a liquidity solution. I think that knowledge is power. And without it, there's a lot of things you don't do or you may do without knowing that may work or may not work. At least partnering with someone like us gives you a a much higher level of probability that you will be successful along the way. Because if you're just partnering with someone who's never done it, it's more of a flip of a coin, and we hope it works out. When you're partnered with someone with true expertise, we know what needs to be done to get us there. I think simultaneously, if you're going to partner with someone, ourselves, we pride in the fact that we are a multi-asset solution. I kind of briefly mentioned that before, but we have become the second biggest non-bank LP in precious metals. This year, we have hit all record highs. I mean, month after month, we're doing more and more volume. I think this has been the most incredible year for the business because it's the highest volume we've ever seen since we started this operation. So we're extremely successful with precious metals, foreign exchange, crypto CFDs, equity indices, and obviously the rest of the products are more, seasonal or less traded, but still appealing for any business out there today. We even have NDFs as a CFD. So it's a very, I call it all in, all your basic needs and beyond are covered. It gives that credibility to your partner, to your end user, to that customer. So I believe if you are to get into the space, you definitely need that type of approach where your LP is diversified into different areas, but also they have a solid offering. And I believe we're very privileged to be in this position because it's after years of effort, we managed to put something like this together, as competitive as it is. Excuse me. At the same time, bear in mind that we run a tech arm, therefore the tech stack that we have been developing, that we have in place, the relationship with third-party vendors, the capability to being agnostic to any connectivity out there, for distribution purposes, it makes a lot of sense to do business with someone like ourselves, but it's something you got to be very mindful of because at the end of the day, if you're going to do a turnkey solution in the liquidity space, it comes down to tech and commercials and who's in your liquidity stack and that sort of thing, right? It's about market depth and spread optimization. Can you build some form of customized solution? Can you, et cetera, et cetera? I think for the audience down the after this conversation, it will make more sense if you listen to what I just said today. But in the general context, we run some of the most robust tech because we have been investing tremendously into our own tech stack. We have been investing in people, in our own engineers, in the development of our infrastructure to make it as strong, bulletproof as it can get. So I like to say, it's something we're very proud of that we have achieved this. And there's over 340 developers in our company. And obviously, that level of knowledge is priceless. Once again, not many businesses out there are looking at establishing a business as we do. We are looking at creating a better tomorrow for the industry, but also to make sure we are going to be doing business in the next 10, 20 years. So we have a long-term plan. We like to plan short-term, but also we have a long-term vision. And a lot more exciting stuff will come out from our business in 2026. Again, just heading back to why I'm so crazy about redundancy. When you're a regulated business, there's a lot of regulatory obligations. That's just the way it is. Uh, we know what it means. We know downtimes. We know, the importance of having state-of-the-art architecture. We always have built the business with a redundancy plan in mind that will protect your business and ours at all times. Something I like to take very seriously because when it comes down to regulated businesses, it's going to be a fundamental part of your business. Okay, now I don't want to keep you, you know, giving out too much information to the extent that you're going to get bored. What is really important? What is it that we want to achieve with everyone out there who's seeking for such a service? What, first of all, if we were to do business with anyone, the first thing we focus on is we come and assess your operation, your setup, whether you've been in business or not. We like to identify any inefficiencies. We like to look at the type of execution you're getting from the market, or you were getting from the market. We focus on so many little details because that ultimately will create altogether the strategy. We design with partners. Once you decide to do business with us and you already have another vendor, we do very careful migrations. We can tailor to your business goals anything you need to achieve. In other words, before we create that strategy, we sit and listen to you. Then, natural process is to integrate, whatever needs you have. If it's not already in our ecosystem, we're a very open-minded business, which means we can take and integrate anything you may not need in the future. Agnostic to any suggestions clients may have, future partners, etc. And then once we launch your solution to market, well, you want to make sure, we want to ensure you will be having the highest probabilities of success. That will ensure that that success turns into ours and we can monetize the opportunity. That's ultimately why we do this. So I feel there's, it's kind of, I like to call it, it's more of a business plan on both sides of the equation that ensures we follow through, and, hopefully with that execution of it, we can both be quite satisfied. Again, I will give you just a couple of examples that I came up with very briefly. When you have in this industry the type of, the best execution possible, it naturally translates into increased trading volume. I mean, in our case, due to the fact that we aggregate tier one banks and non-banks, LPs, I mean, we have become excessively successful, I like to say, in gold, for example, for this year, which is the number one product being traded. And the reason for that is we know how to put together certain streams, how to connect certain clients to certain liquidity pools, which will ultimately send over to you the best outcome for the business. So when you create something custom, you are automatically improving the probabilities of an outcome. And obviously, it comes down to the execution, the clip sizes and all that good stuff that comes with it. The multi-asset element and the fact that we give you one single margin account, it's one of the uniqueness in our business. Very few prime of primes can offer you a single margin account for all asset classes. We follow the model of interactive brokers, so to speak, whereby they have the ability to offer you all asset classes through that particular margin account. We have developed and built on it over the years, extremely capital efficient, because you don't need to park capital for all different asset classes on an independent basis. You can just, put your collateral in one account and trade everything out of it. This is a tremendous benefit out there today. Again, traditionally speaking, and this is very basic, obviously it goes much, much deeper, but just to give you some ideas, when we face broker dealers or any type of financial institution, whether it's a hedge fund or, family offices that are trading with us nowadays, the likes of, fund managers, etc. If you're starting a liquidity business, you ultimately are going to generate income through your commissions, through your swaps, and through the markups that you apply through the tech. Upon your request, we execute those orders. So you basically have the opportunity now to generate different streams of revenue in a way that it was never made accessible before. What we are trying to do here today is to give people the chance, to give businesses the opportunity to simulate something along the lines of what we have built. And that expertise is what put us in this particular position. All right. So I know I've been talking a lot, and I don't know, Nicole, how much time we have remaining. So just kind of guide me through if we're getting short on time. But what I wanted to say is, how do we deliver these solutions? And it's extremely important to take into consideration that when you're looking at something like this, if you're planning to start a business as such, you got to remember something. You're going in business with a reputable partner. You're going to be able to basically become a prime of prime, or let's call it a second tier prime of prime. We will facilitate the entire infrastructure. All you got to do is look for new business and monetize that book of business that you have. So that's why we have partnered with multiple retail brokers out there. Some of the names you probably have heard of, seen, or have interacted perhaps. And essentially, because it's a turnkey solution, we can give you access to not just liquidity, but also to our tech stack if you need it to run your business. So it's extremely important to take into consideration that this is a business about capital efficiency, without a doubt, because if you aggregate liquidity from different venues and you send longs and shorts, as I mentioned earlier, that capital efficiency is gonna, it's ruined. It can backfire to a business instead. So how the broker dealers normally operate is they come to us, they like to start from zero, the whole setup, independent of the tech that they choose. For us is irrelevant, but what I like to say is this is a way to create additional revenue, a turnkey solution in the liquidity business. Most likely, in the most simplistic way, of course, it comes down to just marketing and sales. The tech we have, obviously, you need to take care of your treasury and legal teams because obviously you have to onboard the client. We don't want to face your customer. It's still your your client, your database, so we don't get involved with that. But we have a flexibility in many ways to how to assist you in different areas, in different segments of this entire workflow. And I think why it becomes an efficient solution instead of going and wait for a year or more to get a PB. Then you got to set up that PB. Then you have to, excuse me, onboard all these different banks and non-LPs. Takes months. It's so time consuming, and every day you're losing money instead. But obviously, you can also look at it as you're making an investment that will pay off in due time. I think, real world execution, real world implementation is what we have. And that is ultimately our competitive edge among many others. We believe that, there's going to be a lot of future trends out there. In particular, institutional crypto adoption. We are seeing this. The world is becoming digitalized no matter where you go. Obviously, some parts of the world are much slower in adopting. We constantly see more and more multi-asset broker dealers or brokerages in general. To some degree, I would say there's still a bit of market fragmentation, but that's the nature of the industry we're in. I do firmly believe, though, that regulation is getting stricter through time, and that on its own is growing. It drives the demand for the likes of us for prime of prime relationships because we close that gap. We are in a position, obviously, because we have PB, we can facilitate a white label of our prime of prime solution, and you can just launch and the B2B arm and start distributing liquidity like we've been doing so for years. I think the world has changed. The world has evolved into something completely new, and it will continue to do so. And don't get me wrong, I think we're in a fascinating industry because there's always something happening. And there's always something taking place in different areas. It makes it exciting. Your partner has to have the ability to adapt, and we are quite fast at doing so. We are a young age. By age, I mean we're very young as a company. Average employee here is way way lower than many businesses. I'm probably one of the oldest ones instead. But again, look, I think when we close this gap, when we see the demand for prime of prime relationships, when people know what we are capable of really delivering to you, it brings you a new leverage or a new level of what I like to call techniques on how to leverage local market support and knowledge, because we believe tremendously on language and culture. This is ultimately when you're localized, when you have, we have about 12 offices as of today in different parts of the world. And every time I travel to one of the different offices we have, and whether it's Cyprus, Hong Kong, London, okay, I'm based out of Dubai, but and the list is endless for us. I see how customers, partners, how they react when I bring one of my colleagues and they can speak the native language. It brings a huge amount of support, peace of mind to that particular partner because they know they can count on us, not just on the technical expertise, but on the human level. And I think this is also one of those things. We don't just see partners as partners, we see everyone as part of our community, as part of our industry, which we must respect and honor at all times. That's part of the integrity of this business. And that's what keeps us growing. I always say, when you're going to do business with someone, just keep in mind what you should be expecting from them. Make sure they got all these components which you can read at your own at your own time. Um, Take a look at that tech stack they're using. See what if it's really the best of the best. It's super important. You're dealing with the best tech vendors out there. Is it scalable hosting infrastructure? Key questions. How competitive is their development? Because some guys, they may build you a solution that will last for them for the next 15 years. Guess what? It doesn't work forever. Products have to evolve. Businesses have to evolve. And that's why you need that partner who can push you all the way through. When you're starting, when you're half the way there, and when you're up there, is when you want to make sure you don't have to change vendors. I think is key. I think it's very important to be mindful that that partner has what it takes. We have 24/7 support in 15 different languages. It's something unbelievable. Sometimes I feel like we're in the United Nations because people speak 3, 4 languages on average. I can barely speak one. So, you know, it's um, it's just time to start your own liquidity business. We have that turnkey solution in place, track record. I think I would like to say thank you to all of you who have been listening. I'm grateful you were able to join us. And for those in the future who will be listening to me, please feel free to reach out to our team. We are at your disposal to be able to facilitate any needs you may have. So, just to bring back a little bit about our business, I know I can confuse you because I speak a lot. Basically, B2Broker is our tech arm. B2B and Pay is our digital assets line of business. and B2 Prime is our liquidity services. Now, as you may have noticed, all of our brands start with B2B. So I believe it's imperative. Everyone knows us in the industry as B2B guys. It's funny, but I came across this quite frequently recently. And essentially, each business that we run is basically it's part of the group, but it has a specific focus. B2 Broker is all the tech products. B2B Pay is digital assets. We have one of the most well-known crypto payment gateways in the industry in FX. We also sponsor Athletic Club in Spain, La Liga. So it's a well-known brand globally. And B2 Prime, well, is naturally the liquidity business we run for many years. So if any of you would like to get in contact with us, please feel free to do so. We have all of our information in the websites, so you feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll be delighted to get back to you guys. Many people, when they're thinking of getting into the liquidity business, the first question that comes to their mind is, what should I do? How should I do this? What is my next move? I think it is imperative to mention that if you intend to get into this business and you want to go and set up a prime brokerage, it's not that simple of a task. What we have learned is it's extremely, like I like to say, is very capital intense, extremely difficult to obtain. Some of the most complex setups come through a PB because only certain jurisdictions are accepted to be onboarded by certain prime brokers in general. So it's a very tough business to get in. The reason why I mentioned this is it may look, and there's a lot of agents and legal firms out there that are trying to sell you the dream because we're all, especially when you're trying to get into the space, you're hungry for it. You think, yeah, I'm gonna go. They give you very nice expectations, and then a year later, reality strikes. Perhaps millions of dollars of investment, and you still don't have that license nor the prime brokerage. So what I'm trying to say is just be very cautious when you're going to tackle this idea, how to do so. Try your best to make sure you can come to a business like us, and at least we can give you some guidance because we would love to do business with everyone. Don't get me wrong, but it's a very challenging space to get in on your own. You need to have someone to help you. That's why we developed the turnkey solution. So you don't have to go through that obstacle, that challenge, that massive investment that it goes behind it. So that's the only point I would like to elaborate a little bit on. And perhaps you see the value and we can engage into a discussion at your own discretion. In the eventuality there are no further questions, I would like to wish everyone happy holidays and looking forward seeing you, meeting you, or having a chat during 2026.
John, do you think we have enough time to answer a question from our Q&A?
Absolutely.
Are you able to see it?
It's in, I'm sorry. We take Donald, yeah. Does B2 Broker offer KYC, AML checking service? Okay. Yes. So the answer to your question, Donald, is we do offer sums up. We have the integration. And what our partners do is you go to them, you agree on the commercials, you give us credentials, we plug it in, and you're good to go. Simple as that. For those of you who are still here, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for listening. And until next time, happy holidays.
Thank you everyone for joining. John, thank you so much. It was a very interesting presentation. and we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Happy holidays.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye for now.